The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty training ground at Fort Benning, Georgia. Sarah Martinez adjusted her rifle scope for the 100th time that day, sweat beading on her forehead despite the early hour. Around her, male soldiers moved with practiced ease through the sniper training course, their confident voices carrying across the range. Sarah had always been different. Growing up in a small Texas town, she learned to hunt with her grandfather before she could properly tie her shoes. While other girls her age played with dolls, Sarah was learning to track deer through thick brush and make impossible shots with an old hunting rifle. Her grandfather, a Vietnam veteran, saw something special in her steady hands and calm demeanor. "Patience, little bird," he would whisper as they waited in their hunting blind. "A good shot waits for the perfect moment. Breathe slow, think clear, and let the rifle do its work." Those lessons served her well when she enlisted in the Army at 18. The recruiting station in her hometown had never seen a woman express interest in combat roles. The sergeant behind the desk looked her up and down with obvious doubt. "You sure about this, miss? We got plenty of other jobs that might suit you better. Medical, communications, logistics." Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "I want to be infantry, sir. I want to serve on the front lines." The sergeant shrugged and handed her the paperwork. He had seen plenty of young people with big dreams get humbled by military reality. He figured boot camp would sort out where she really belonged. But Sarah thrived in basic training. While other recruits struggled with the physical demands, she moved through obstacle courses like water flowing downhill. Her marksmanship scores caught attention immediately. During weapons qualification, she consistently shot expert ratings with every weapon system they put in her hands. Her drill sergeant, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez, pulled her aside after one particularly impressive shooting performance. "Martinez, where did you learn to shoot like that?" "My grandfather taught me, drill sergeant. Been hunting since I was 6. Rodriguez nodded slowly. He had seen plenty of recruits who claimed to be good shots, but few delivered when it mattered. This young woman was different. There was something calm and focused about her that reminded him of the best snipers he had worked with in Iraq. After basic training, Sarah was assigned to an infantry unit at Fort Stewart. She expected some resistance from the male soldiers, and she was not disappointed. Comments followed her everywhere she went. Whispers about whether women belonged in combat roles. Questions about her strength, her stamina, her mental toughness. Sarah let her performance speak for itself. During training exercises, she consistently outperformed her peers in marksmanship and fieldcraft. When they practiced urban warfare scenarios, she moved through buildings like a ghost, appearing where enemies least expected her. Her ability to remain perfectly still for hours while observing target areas impressed even the most skeptical veterans. Staff Sergeant Johnson, her squad leader, initially shared the doubts of his peers. He had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and believed combat was no place for women. But watching Sarah work changed his mind gradually. "She has something special," he admitted to his wife during a phone call home. "I have never seen anyone so calm under pressure. When bullets are flying and everyone else is diving for cover, she just gets steadier. Like the chaos makes her focus better." The opportunity that would change Sarah's life came during a joint training exercise with Special Operations Forces. The exercise simulated a hostage rescue scenario in an urban environment. Sarah's unit was tasked with providing overwatch and perimeter security while Navy SEALs conducted the actual raid. Commander Jackson, the SEAL team leader, was a legend in special operations circles. He had led countless missions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other locations that remain classified. His reputation for tactical brilliance was matched only by his reputation for being incredibly demanding of anyone who worked with him. The exercise began before dawn. Sarah positioned herself on a rooftop 300 meters from the target building, tasked with providing sniper support for the operation. Through her scope, she could see SEAL operators moving into position around the building. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then, the unexpected happened. During military exercises, scenario controllers often throw curveballs to test how units respond to changing situations. This time, They introduced additional hostile forces that the assault team had not planned for. Through her scope, Sarah spotted movement in a building across from her position. Enemy role players were setting up what appeared to be a heavy machine gun position that would have a clear line of fire into the SEAL assault route. The scenario controllers had not briefed anyone about this threat, which meant it was a real-time addition to test decision-making. Sarah tried to radio the information to her squad leader, but radio communications were being jammed as part of the exercise. She tried hand signals, but no one in her unit had line of sight to her position. The SEAL team was already moving toward the building, unaware of the threat developing on their flank. She faced a decision that would define her military career. Standard protocol called for her to maintain her assigned Overwatch position. She was not supposed to engage targets without explicit permission from her chain of command. But she could see that the SEAL team was walking into what would be devastating crossfire in a real combat situation. Sarah made her choice. She adjusted her aim and began engaging the role-player enemies in a machine gun position. Her first shot took out the gunner. Her second shot eliminated the assistant gunner. Her third shot destroyed the mock weapon system itself. The SEAL team completed their mission without ever knowing how close they had come to walking into an ambush. But Commander Jackson noticed that the expected enemy fire from that building never materialized. During the after-action review, he asked pointed questions about who had neutralized that threat. That was Martinez, Staff Sergeant Johnson reported somewhat nervously. He knew Sarah had technically operated outside her assigned parameters. She spotted the threat and took it out on her own initiative. Commander Jackson asked to speak with Sarah privately after the review. She expected to be reprimanded for not following proper procedures. Instead, the SEAL commander asked detailed questions about what she had observed, how she had made her decisions, and what her shooting background was. "You showed excellent judgment out there, soldier," Jackson told her. "You saw a problem, analyzed the situation, and took appropriate action to solve it. That kind of tactical thinking is exactly what we need in special operations." Sarah was surprised by his response. "Thank you, sir. I was just trying to make sure your team stayed safe during the exercise." Jackson studied her carefully. He had worked with hundreds of snipers during his career, and he knew talent when he saw it. This young soldier had demonstrated not just excellent marksmanship, but the kind of tactical awareness and decision-making ability that could not be taught. "How would you feel about some additional training opportunities?" he asked. "I think you might be interested in some of the programs we run for advanced marksmanship and reconnaissance." Sarah felt her heart race, but she kept her expression neutral. "I would be very interested in any training opportunities, sir." Over the following weeks, Commander Jackson made some phone calls and pulled some strings. Sarah's chain of command was initially resistant to the idea of sending her to advanced training programs typically reserved for special operations personnel. But Jackson's reputation opened doors that would normally remain closed. The first program Sarah attended was a 2-week advanced marksmanship course taught by Marine Corps Scout snipers. She was the only woman in a class of 24 students. The instructors made it clear from the beginning that they expected her to wash out within the first few days. "This course has a 70% failure rate," the lead instructor announced on the first morning. "We will push you to your physical and mental limits. Some of you think you're good shots. Some of you think you are tough. This course will teach you what those words really mean." The physical demands were brutal. Students carried heavy packs for miles through swampland and mountains. They crawled through mud and thorns for hours to reach shooting positions. They went days with minimal sleep while maintaining precision accuracy with their weapons. Sarah not only survived the course, she excelled. Her final shooting scores were the highest in the class. Her fieldcraft evaluations were perfect. She demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to disappear into natural surroundings and remain undetected for extended periods. The Marine instructors were impressed despite themselves. Gunnery Sergeant Williams, who had initially bet money that Sarah would not last 3 days, became one of her strongest supporters. "I have been teaching this course for 8 years, he told Commander Jackson during a progress call. "I have never seen anyone with her natural ability for this work. She moves through the woods like she was born there. Her shooting is textbook perfect, but more than that, she thinks like a sniper. She understands patience and timing in ways that most people never learn. Word of Sarah's performance spread through special operations circles. She began receiving invitations to other advanced training programs, a 6-week surveillance and reconnaissance course, an urban warfare school focused on building, clearing, and close-quarters combat, a survival course that pushed students to their absolute limits in harsh environments. Sarah approached each challenge with the same quiet determination she had learned from her grandfather. She never complained about the physical hardships. She never asked for special treatment because she was a woman. She simply showed up every day and performed at a level that earned the respect of even the most skeptical instructors. But it was during a joint training exercise in Colorado that Sarah truly proved herself. The scenario involved multiple special operations teams conducting a complex mission across rugged mountain terrain. Sarah's role was to provide long-range reconnaissance and sniper support from concealed positions. The exercise lasted 5 days. For the entire period, Sarah remained alone in the mountains, moving between carefully selected positions while tracking the movements of multiple teams across the battlefield. She provided detailed intelligence reports about enemy positions and movements. When called upon, she provided precision fire support that allowed friendly forces to advance safely through dangerous areas. On the 4th day of the exercise, real danger entered the scenario. A sudden mountain storm brought freezing rain and dangerous winds. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and visibility was reduced to near zero. Exercise controllers considered ending the training early due to safety concerns. Sarah radioed in that she was secure in her position and could continue the mission. For 18 hours, she remained motionless in a hastily constructed shelter while the storm raged around her. When the weather cleared, she was back on the radio providing updated intelligence about how the storm had affected the tactical situation. Commander Jackson was monitoring the exercise from the command post. He watched with growing admiration as Sarah's professional reports continued throughout the crisis. While other personnel were struggling with basic survival in the harsh conditions, she was still thinking tactically and providing valuable intelligence to the mission. That soldier has the mental toughness of the best special operations personnel I have worked with, Jackson told his operations officer. She just spent a night in conditions that would break most people, and she never lost focus on her mission. After the Colorado exercise, Jackson made a decision that would change the trajectory of Sarah's military career. He formally requested that she be assigned to work with his SEAL team on a permanent basis. Such assignments were virtually unheard of for regular Army personnel, especially women. But Jackson's reputation and influence made things happen that normally would not be possible. The paperwork took months to process through military bureaucracy. There were questions about regulations, about precedent, about whether such an assignment was appropriate. But Jackson was persistent, and he had the support of other senior officers who had witnessed Sarah's exceptional performance. When the orders finally came through, Sarah packed her bags and reported to Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. She knew that the real test was just beginning. Training courses were one thing, but working with an operational SEAL team would present challenges she had never faced before. The SEAL team she was assigned to support was made up of veterans with multiple combat deployments. They had worked together for years and had developed the kind of trust that comes only from shared danger. Sarah knew that earning their acceptance would require more than just shooting ability. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, the team's senior enlisted leader, made the situation clear during her first day with the unit. "I do not care what your training scores were," he told her bluntly. "I do not care who recommended you for this assignment. What I care about is whether you can do the job when lives are on the line. My team has been through hell together, and I will not risk their lives to make some kind of political statement about women in combat." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Understand, Chief. I am not here to make statements. I am here to do whatever job you need done. Give me a chance to prove myself." Rodriguez studied her for a long moment. He had dealt with plenty of soldiers who thought they were ready for special operations work. Most of them learned quickly that they were not as prepared as they believed. But there was something different about this young woman. She did not have the cocky attitude he expected. Instead, she seemed genuinely focused on learning and contributing. "We will see," Rodriguez said finally. "Training starts tomorrow at 0500. Do not be late." The SEAL training facility at Coronado was unlike anything Sarah had experienced before. The pace was relentless, the standards impossibly high, and the margin for error non-existent. From the moment she arrived each morning until long after sunset, every minute was dedicated to honing skills that could mean the difference between life and death in combat. Chief Rodriguez structured Sarah's training program to test every aspect of her abilities. Physical fitness sessions that left even seasoned SEALs gasping for breath. Weapons training that demanded perfect accuracy under extreme stress. Tactical scenarios that required split-second decision-making with incomplete information. Sarah approached each challenge with the same quiet determination that had carried her through previous training programs. But this was different. The SEALs were not just testing her individual abilities. They were evaluating whether she could function as part of their team under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. The first major test came during a night infiltration exercise. The scenario required the team to move silently through heavily defended terrain, establish observation positions, and gather intelligence on enemy activities. Sarah's role was to provide overwatch from a concealed position while the team conducted their reconnaissance. The exercise area was a complex of abandoned buildings surrounded by dense brush and uneven terrain. Motion sensors and infrared cameras simulated enemy security systems. Roving patrols added unpredictable human elements to the challenge. Any team member who was detected would trigger alarms that would end the exercise in failure. Sarah studied the terrain for hours before the mission began. She identified 3 potential positions that would give her clear fields of fire to support the team while remaining hidden from enemy observation. Each position had advantages and disadvantages that she carefully weighed against the mission requirements. When darkness fell, the team moved out. Sarah separated from a main group and began her own careful approach to her selected position. Moving through the dark terrain required every skill she had learned during her training. Each step had to be placed carefully to avoid making noise on the rocky ground. Each movement had to be slow and deliberate to avoid triggering motion sensors. It took Sarah nearly 2 hours to reach her first position. Through her night vision scope, she could see the SEAL team members moving like shadows through the target area. Their movement was so skillful that even knowing where to look, she sometimes lost track of their positions. The exercise proceeded smoothly for the first 3 hours. The team gathered the required intelligence and prepared to move to their extraction point. But then, the scenario controllers introduced a complication that tested everyone's ability to adapt under pressure. Additional enemy patrols entered the area, blocking the team's planned extraction route. Radio communications were being jammed, preventing the team from coordinating their response to the new threat. Sarah watched through her scope as the SEAL operators found themselves trapped between converging enemy forces. From her elevated position, Sarah had a clear view of the entire tactical situation. She could see routes that the team could not see from their ground-level perspective. She could identify enemy positions that were hidden from the team's view. But without radio communications, she had no way to pass this critical information to them. Sarah made a decision that demonstrated the tactical thinking that had impressed Commander Jackson during their first meeting. Instead of maintaining her static overwatch position, she began moving to a location where she could signal the team using infrared light that would be visible through their night vision equipment, but invisible to the enemy role players. The movement required her to cross nearly half a mile of dangerous terrain while remaining completely undetected. She moved in short rushes between covered positions, timing her movements to avoid enemy patrols. Several times, she had to remain motionless for extended periods while hostile forces passed within feet of her position. When Sarah finally reached the position where she could signal the team, she used a coded light sequence to indicate safe routes through the enemy positions. Her information allowed the team to avoid the blocking forces and reached their extraction point successfully. During the after-action review, Commander Jackson asked detailed questions about Sarah's decision-making process during the exercise. "You had clear instructions to maintain overwatch from your assigned position," Jackson pointed out. "What made you decide to abandon that position and risk moving to a new location?" Sarah answered carefully, aware that her response was being evaluated by the entire team. "Sir, my mission was to support the team's success. From my original position, I could see the tactical situation clearly, but I could not communicate that information to the team due to the communications jamming. Moving to the signaling position was risky, but it was the only way to provide the support the team needed to complete their mission." Chief Rodriguez, who had been skeptical of Sarah's assignment from the beginning, asked the question that everyone was thinking. What if you had been detected during that movement? Your position would have been compromised, and the entire exercise would have failed. "That was a risk I had to balance against the certainty that the team would be captured or eliminated if they continued on their current route," Sarah replied. "I evaluated the enemy patrol patterns and timing, and I believed I could make the movement undetected. The intelligence I could provide was worth the risk." Commander Jackson exchanged glances with his senior staff. This was exactly the kind of tactical thinking and risk assessment that separated good soldiers from exceptional ones. Sarah had demonstrated not just technical skills, but the judgment and initiative that special operations missions demanded. Over the following weeks, the training scenarios became increasingly complex and demanding. Sarah participated in hostage rescue simulations, direct action missions, and long-range reconnaissance operations. Each exercise tested different aspects of her abilities and pushed her to operate at the limits of her capabilities. During a particularly challenging urban warfare exercise, Sarah's marksmanship skills proved decisive. The scenario involved rescuing hostages from a building complex defended by multiple enemy positions. The SEAL team needed to clear the buildings systematically while avoiding civilian casualties and preventing enemy forces from executing the hostages. Sarah positioned herself on a rooftop with clear views into multiple buildings. As the team began their assault, she provided precision fire support that eliminated enemy positions before they could threaten the advancing SEALs. Her shooting was so accurate and timely that the team was able to complete the rescue without taking any casualties. Petty Officer First Class Thompson, one of the team's most experienced operators, approached Sarah after the exercise with obvious respect in his voice. "I have never seen shooting like that," Thompson told her. "You were making headshots through windows at 400 meters while we were moving through the buildings. That kind of precision shooting under those conditions is something special." Sarah appreciated the compliment, but she was more focused on areas where she could improve her performance. "I missed the timing on the third-floor window shot by about 2 seconds," she said. "If that had been a real situation, you might have taken fire from that position before I could engage." Thompson stared at her in amazement. The shot she was criticizing had been flawless by any reasonable standard. But Sarah's pursuit of perfection was pushing her to standards that impressed even veteran special operations personnel. As the training program continued, Sarah's acceptance by the team evolved gradually. Initially, the SEALs had evaluated her as an individual whose abilities they needed to assess. But over time, they began treating her as a valued team member whose skills complemented their own capabilities. The turning point came during a survival, evasion, resistance, and escape SEER exercise designed to test how personnel performed when captured by enemy forces. Sarah and 2 SEAL team members were dropped in remote desert terrain with minimal equipment and instructions to evade capture while reaching a distant extraction point. The scenario included hostile forces actively hunting for the team. If captured, team members would face realistic interrogation designed to test their resistance to enemy pressure. The exercise was notorious for its psychological and physical demands. Sarah's wilderness skills, honed during years of hunting with her grandfather, proved invaluable during the evasion phase. She led the team through terrain that offered concealment while avoiding areas where enemy forces were likely to establish observation posts. Her ability to find water sources and edible plants kept the team functional during 3 days of movement through harsh desert conditions. On the second night of the exercise, enemy forces nearly discovered the team's hiding position. Sarah spotted the approaching patrol first and guided her teammates to a concealed location where they remained undetected while hostile forces searched the area for over an hour. Petty Officer Second Class Williams, who had been openly skeptical of having a woman assigned to the team, whispered his appreciation as they waited in hiding. "I would not have seen that patrol until they were right on top of us," he admitted. "Your eyes and ears just saved all of us from getting captured." Sarah's response was typically modest. "We are a team. That is what teams do. They watch out for each other." The exercise concluded successfully when the team reached their extraction point without being captured. During the debriefing, the exercise controllers noted that Sarah's performance had been exceptional not just individually, but in how she had contributed to overall team effectiveness. Commander Jackson was beginning to see Sarah not just as a skilled individual, but as someone who could enhance the capabilities of his entire team. Her unique combination of technical skills, tactical awareness, and team-oriented mindset was exactly what he looked for in special operations personnel. The final phase of Sarah's training integration involved live-fire exercises with full mission scenarios. These exercises used live ammunition and explosive charges to create realistic combat conditions. The margin for error was minimal, and the consequences of mistakes could be deadly. During one particularly intense exercise, the team was tasked with assaulting a heavily fortified position defended by multiple machine gun emplacements and sniper positions. Sarah's role was to neutralize the enemy snipers while the assault team approached the target building. The exercise began at dawn, with Sarah moving to her shooting position under cover of darkness. She had studied aerial photographs and satellite imagery of the target area for days, identifying likely enemy positions and planning her engagement sequence. As the assault began, Sarah's scope revealed enemy snipers in 3 separate buildings. These positions were expertly camouflaged and would have been nearly impossible to detect without her elevated observation point and specialized training. Sarah's first shot eliminated the most dangerous enemy position, a sniper with clear lines of fire into the main assault route. Her second and third shots followed in rapid succession, neutralizing the remaining threats before they could engage the approaching SEAL team. The precision and speed of Sarah's shooting allowed the team to advance with minimal exposure to enemy fire. They completed their mission objective and reached their extraction point without casualties. Chief Rodriguez, who had observed the entire exercise through a spotting scope, approached Sarah with undisguised admiration. "I have worked with dozens of snipers during my career," he told her. "I have never seen anyone who could shoot with that level of precision under those conditions. But more importantly, you understood exactly what the team needed from you and delivered it perfectly." For the first time since arriving at the SEAL facility, Sarah allowed herself to feel confident that she was earning her place with the team. The acceptance she saw in the faces of these elite warriors was more valuable to her than any medal or commendation. Commander Jackson gathered the team for a final evaluation meeting at the end of Sarah's training period. The discussion would determine whether she would be permanently assigned to support the team's operational missions. "I want honest feedback from everyone," Jackson told his men. "This decision affects all of us, and everyone's opinion matters." The responses were unanimous. Every team member spoke about specific ways that Sarah had demonstrated her value during the training exercises. They cited her technical skills, her tactical judgment, her physical and mental toughness, and her ability to function effectively as part of their team. Chief Rodriguez summarized the consensus when he said, "Sir, I was opposed to this assignment when it was first proposed. I believed it was a mistake that would put the team at risk. I was wrong. Martinez has proven that she belongs here. She makes us better at our job." Commander Jackson nodded thoughtfully. He had reached the same conclusion, but he needed to hear it from the men who would be trusting their lives to Sarah's abilities in combat. "Martinez," Jackson said, turning to Sarah. "Welcome to the team. We have work to do." Sarah felt a surge of pride and satisfaction, but she kept her expression professional. Thank you, sir. I am ready for whatever missions you have for us. The formal training period was over, but Sarah knew that her real test was just beginning. Soon, the team would deploy on actual combat missions where the stakes were real and the enemy would be trying to kill them. Everything she had learned during her training would be put to the ultimate test in the crucible of actual combat. The deployment notification came on a Tuesday morning in March. Sarah was cleaning her rifle in the team equipment room when Commander Jackson gathered everyone for a mission briefing. The target was a compound in Afghanistan where intelligence indicated high-value terrorist leaders were planning major attacks against coalition forces. "This is what we have been training for," Jackson told the assembled team. "Intelligence suggests the target location houses multiple enemy commanders who have been responsible for IED attacks that have killed dozens of our personnel. The mission is direct action. Eliminate the targets and secure any intelligence materials found on site." Sarah felt her heart rate increase as Jackson outlined the mission details. This would be her first real combat operation with the SEAL team. Everything she had learned during training would be tested under actual combat conditions where mistakes could cost lives. The target compound was located in a remote valley surrounded by mountainous terrain. Enemy forces in the area were well-armed and experienced fighters who had been battling coalition forces for years. Recent intelligence indicated they had access to heavy weapons and sophisticated communications equipment. Sarah's role in the mission was to provide overwatch and precision fire support from a ridgeline approximately 800 meters from the target compound. Her position would give her clear fields of fire to support the assault team while remaining hidden from enemy observation. The team spent 3 days preparing for the mission. They studied satellite photographs, reviewed intelligence reports, and rehearsed the operation using detailed scale models of the target area. Sarah memorized every building, every window, and every potential enemy position she might need to engage. Chief Rodriguez worked with Sarah to plan her infiltration route to the Overwatch position. The approach would require her to move through nearly 2 miles of hostile territory while carrying her rifle, ammunition, and survival equipment. Any sound or movement that revealed her presence could compromise the entire mission. "Remember, once you are in position, you will be on your own until the extraction," Rodriguez told her. "We will not be able to provide support if you run into trouble during your approach or withdrawal. Everything depends on you staying invisible." Sarah nodded her understanding. She had prepared for this level of independent operation throughout her training. Her grandfather's lessons about patience and silence would serve her well in the mountains of Afghanistan. The team deployed to Afghanistan aboard a military transport aircraft that landed at Bagram Air Base in the pre-dawn darkness. The flight had taken 18 hours with stops for refueling, giving Sarah time to review her mission materials and mentally prepare for the challenges ahead. At Bagram, the team received final intelligence updates from analysts who had been monitoring the target area. Recent surveillance indicated the presence of at least 12 enemy fighters at the compound, possibly more. Radio intercepts suggested they were expecting a supply convoy to arrive within the next 48 hours, making immediate action necessary. Commander Jackson made final adjustments to the mission timeline based on the updated intelligence. The assault would begin at 0300 hours, taking advantage of darkness and the period when enemy vigilance was typically at its lowest point. Sarah spent the evening before the mission checking and rechecking her equipment. Her rifle was a specialized sniper system capable of precise accuracy at extreme ranges. She had spent hundreds of hours training with this exact weapon until it felt like a natural extension of her body. The night vision scope attached to her rifle would allow her to identify and engage targets in complete darkness. The suppressor attached to the barrel would reduce the sound and muzzle flash of her shots, helping to keep her position concealed during the operation. At 2,100 hours, the team boarded a helicopter for insertion into the target area. The flight took 40 minutes over mountainous terrain that appeared completely black in the darkness below. Sarah could feel the tension among the team members as they approached their insertion point. The helicopter landing was conducted in complete darkness with no exterior lights. The crew chief signaled when they were approaching the landing zone, and the team prepared for immediate departure from the aircraft. They would have less than 30 seconds on the ground before the helicopter departed to avoid detection by enemy forces. Sarah was the first team member out of the helicopter. She moved quickly away from the aircraft and took up a security position while the rest of the team disembarked. Within seconds, the helicopter was airborne again, leaving the team alone in hostile territory. The insertion point was located 3 miles from the target compound, requiring the team to move through difficult mountain terrain while avoiding enemy patrols and observation posts. Sarah separated from the main team and began her own approach to the overwatch position. Moving through the rocky terrain in complete darkness required every skill Sarah had learned during her training. She used her night vision equipment to navigate between boulders and through ravines that provided concealment from enemy observation. Each step had to be placed carefully to avoid loose rocks that could create noise or cause her to lose her footing. The approach to her position took nearly 4 hours of careful movement. Several times, Sarah had to remain motionless for extended periods while enemy patrols passed nearby. Her camouflaged clothing and disciplined movement kept her invisible to the hostile forces searching the area. As dawn approached, Sarah reached her planned overwatch position on the ridgeline overlooking the target compound. The location provided excellent concealment among large rocks while giving her clear lines of sight to every building and entrance in the target area. Through her rifle scope, Sarah could see the compound layout exactly as it had appeared in the satellite photographs. 3 main buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with defensive positions and guard posts at strategic locations. Enemy fighters were visible moving between the buildings, confirming that the target location was actively occupied. Sarah established radio contact with Commander Jackson to confirm her position and provide initial reconnaissance information. "Overwatch is in position," she reported quietly. "I have visual on the target compound, counting at least 8 enemy personnel visible, possibly more inside the buildings. No heavy weapons visible from this angle, but limited visibility into some areas." Jackson acknowledged her report and provided an updated timeline for the assault. "We are 40 minutes out from our assault position. Continue observation and report any changes in enemy activity or defensive positions." For the next 30 minutes, Sarah watched the compound through her scope while the SEAL assault team moved into position. She counted enemy personnel, noted their movement patterns, and identified potential threats to the advancing team. Her detailed observations would be critical for the success of the mission. At 0255 hours, Sarah observed increased activity in the compound. Additional enemy fighters appeared, and there seemed to be preparations for some kind of departure or supply activity. She immediately radioed this information to Commander Jackson. "Multiple enemy personnel now moving in the compound," she reported. "Looks like they may be preparing to move out or expecting arrivals. Recommend immediate execution to prevent target escape." Jackson made the decision to begin the assault earlier than planned. "All call signs. We are moving to immediate execution. Overwatch, stand by for fire support requests." The assault began with Sarah eliminating 2 enemy sentries who were positioned to observe the main approach route. Her shots were perfectly timed and aimed, neutralizing the threats before they could raise any alarm. The suppressed rifle shots were virtually inaudible at the distance to the compound. As the SEAL team advanced on the compound, enemy fighters began responding to their presence. Muzzle flashes appeared from windows and defensive positions as hostile forces attempted to repel the assault. Sarah identified and engaged these threats with precision fire that allowed the assault team to advance safely. The battle was intense, but brief. Sarah's overwatch position gave her clear visibility of the entire engagement, allowing her to provide fire support exactly where it was needed most. Her accurate shooting eliminated several enemy fighters who were attempting to flank the SEAL team's advance. During the height of the engagement, Sarah observed an enemy fighter preparing to fire a rocket-propelled grenade at the assault team from an upstairs window. The angle and distance made an extremely difficult shot, but Sarah did not hesitate. Her single shot eliminated the threat just seconds before the enemy fighter could fire the RPG. Chief Rodriguez's voice came over the radio with obvious relief. Outstanding shot, Overwatch. That RPG would have caused serious problems for us down here. The assault team systematically cleared each building in the compound, securing the target personnel and gathering intelligence materials. Sarah maintained her Overwatch position throughout the operation, scanning for additional threats or enemy reinforcements that might arrive to counterattack. 20 minutes after the assault began, Commander Jackson radioed that the mission objectives had been accomplished. All targets secured, intelligence materials collected. Prepare for extraction. But as the team prepared to depart the compound, Sarah observed movement on the ridgelines surrounding their position. Enemy reinforcements were arriving and moving to positions where they could attack the extraction helicopter or ambush the team during their departure. Multiple enemy personnel moving on the high ground to your north and east, Sarah reported urgently. Looks like they are setting up an ambush for your extraction route. Jackson quickly assessed the tactical situation. The team was loaded down with captured intelligence materials and detained enemy personnel, making rapid movement difficult. The approaching enemy forces would be in position to attack the extraction helicopter or engage the team during their vulnerable departure. Overwatch, can you engage those positions from your location? Jackson asked. Sarah studied the enemy positions through her scope. The range was at the extreme limit of her rifle's effective capability, and the targets were partially concealed among rocks and vegetation. But she could see enough to engage them if she was careful with her shot placement. Affirmative. I can engage, but I will need to relocate after shooting to avoid counterfire. Approved. Engage at will. Sarah's first shot eliminated an enemy fighter who was setting up a heavy machine gun position. Her second shot took out the fighter carrying ammunition for the weapon. The remaining enemy personnel in that position immediately sought better cover, disrupting their planned ambush. Sarah quickly shifted her aim to the second enemy position and engaged two more fighters who were attempting to position themselves to fire on the extraction helicopter. Her accurate fire forced the remaining enemies to abandon their positions and seek cover that prevented them from threatening the extraction. The precision and speed of Sarah's shooting had eliminated the ambush threat and allowed the mission to proceed to successful completion. The extraction helicopter arrived on schedule and departed with the team and their captured materials without taking any enemy fire. During the flight back to base, Commander Jackson made a point of acknowledging Sarah's contribution to the mission's success. Your shooting today was exceptional, he told her over the aircraft intercom. The way you handled that ambush situation probably saved lives and definitely ensured our mission's success. Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction at the praise from the SEAL commander, but she was already thinking about lessons learned and areas where her performance could be improved for future missions. The intelligence materials captured during the raid proved to be extremely valuable. Documents and electronic devices revealed plans for major attacks against coalition forces and identified previously unknown enemy networks operating in the region. The success of the mission led to additional operations that disrupted enemy activities for months afterward. Word of Sarah's performance during the Afghanistan mission spread through special operations circles. Her precise shooting under extreme conditions and tactical decision-making during the enemy ambush attempt established her reputation as an exceptional sniper who could operate effectively in the most challenging environments. But for Sarah, the mission represented something even more important than professional recognition. She had proven to herself and to the SEAL team that she could perform under actual combat conditions. The months of training and preparation had been tested in the crucible of real combat, and she had not been found wanting. Chief Rodriguez approached her during the post-mission debriefing with respect evident in his voice. I owe you an apology, he told her quietly. When you were first assigned to this team, I had serious doubts about whether you belonged here. Today you proved that you are not just capable of doing this job, you are exceptional at it. I am proud to serve with you. Sarah appreciated Rodriguez's words, but She knew that this mission was just the beginning of her service with the SEAL team. There would be more deployments, more dangerous missions, and more opportunities to prove herself worthy of the trust her teammates placed in her. As the team prepared for their return to the United States, Sarah reflected on how far she had come from that young woman who had walked into the Army recruiting station in a small Texas town. The journey had been challenging beyond anything she could have imagined, but it had led her to exactly where she belonged. Commander Jackson was already planning future missions that would take advantage of Sarah's unique capabilities. Her combination of technical skills, tactical awareness, and unshakable composure under pressure made her an invaluable asset for the most demanding special operations missions. The war in Afghanistan would continue for years to come, and the SEAL team would deploy many more times to face enemy forces in harsh and dangerous conditions. Sarah would be with them, providing the precision fire support and tactical expertise that had already proven decisive in saving lives and accomplishing critical missions. But perhaps most importantly, Sarah had established a precedent that would open doors for other women who possessed the skills and determination to serve in special operations roles. Her success was not just a personal achievement, but a demonstration that excellence in combat had nothing to do with gender and everything to do with character, capability, and commitment to mission success. 3 years after that first combat mission in Afghanistan, Sarah had become a legend within special operations circles. She had participated in over 40 high-risk missions across multiple theaters of operation. Her reputation for precision shooting under impossible conditions had earned her the respect of commanders throughout the military. The mission that would define her legacy began with an urgent intelligence briefing at Joint Special Operations Command Headquarters. A high-value terrorist leader responsible for coordinating attacks against American forces had been located in a heavily fortified compound in Syria. The target was considered so dangerous that eliminating him was designated a top national security priority. This individual has been directly responsible for planning attacks that have killed over 200 coalition personnel, the intelligence briefer explained to the assembled special operations team. He has evaded capture for 3 years and is believed to be planning a major terrorist attack against targets in the United States. Commander Jackson, now promoted to full colonel, was tasked with leading the mission to eliminate this target. The operation would be the most complex and dangerous his team had ever attempted. The target compound was located in urban terrain, surrounded by hostile forces and civilian populations. The challenge is not just reaching the target, Jackson explained to his team during the mission planning session. The compound is in the middle of a city controlled by enemy forces. We will have to infiltrate through multiple layers of enemy security, eliminate the target without causing civilian casualties, and extract through hostile territory while being pursued by superior enemy forces. Sarah studied the intelligence materials with growing concern. The target compound was a 4-story building surrounded by other structures occupied by civilians. Enemy forces had established multiple defensive positions throughout the area, including sniper teams, heavy weapons emplacements, and roving patrols. The distance from potential overwatch positions to the target building was over 1,000 meters, at the extreme range of even the most advanced sniper rifles. The shot angles were restricted by surrounding buildings, and there were limited positions that would provide both the necessary fields of fire and adequate concealment for a sniper. This is going to require a different approach than our previous missions, Sarah told Jackson during a private planning session. The range and environmental factors make traditional sniper support almost impossible. I will need to get much closer to the target area to be effective. Jackson nodded grimly. He had reached the same conclusion during his own analysis of the mission requirements. What are you thinking? Sarah pointed to the aerial photographs of the target area. There is a building complex approximately 300 meters from the target that could provide the necessary shooting position. But getting there would require infiltrating through enemy-controlled territory and establishing position without being detected by multiple enemy observation posts. That would put you completely on your own, with no possibility of support if things go wrong, Jackson pointed out. If you're detected or compromised, The team will not be able to reach you. Sarah met his gaze steadily. I understand the risks, sir, but this is the only way to provide the precision fire support the mission requires. The target is too important to eliminate with conventional tactics. Jackson spent 2 days considering the options before approving Sarah's proposal. The mission would proceed with Sarah infiltrating independently to establish an advanced sniper position while the main assault team approached from a different direction. The infiltration phase required Sarah to move through 6 miles of urban terrain controlled by enemy forces. She would travel at night, moving between buildings and through underground passages while avoiding enemy patrols and surveillance systems. Sarah prepared for the mission with meticulous attention to detail. She studied street maps, building layouts, and patrol schedules for weeks. Her equipment was specially selected for the mission, lightweight, but capable of precision accuracy at extreme range. The insertion was conducted by helicopter at a landing zone 15 miles from the target city. Sarah separated from the main team immediately after landing and began her solo approach through hostile territory. The assault team would wait 24 hours before beginning their own movement, allowing Sarah time to reach her position and provide reconnaissance information. Moving through enemy-controlled urban terrain at night was unlike anything Sarah had experienced during her previous missions. Every shadow could conceal an enemy fighter. Every sound could trigger an alarm that would bring dozens of hostile forces converging on her position. Sarah moved through the city like a ghost, using drainage systems, abandoned buildings, and construction sites to remain invisible to enemy observation. Her progress was slow but steady, covering approximately 1 mile per hour while maintaining complete stealth. Twice during her approach, Sarah encountered enemy patrols that forced her to remain motionless for extended periods. Once, she spent 3 hours hidden in a bombed-out basement, while enemy fighters searched the building directly above her position. Her discipline and patience allowed her to remain undetected despite the proximity of hostile forces. After 8 hours of careful movement, Sarah reached the building complex she had identified as her shooting position. The structure had been damaged by previous fighting, but it still provided the elevation and fields of fire necessary for her mission. Sarah established her position in a room on the 3rd floor that offered clear lines of sight to the target building. She carefully arranged her equipment and camouflaged her position to remain invisible to enemy observation. Through her scope, she could see guards moving around the target compound and lights in windows indicating enemy activity. Sarah radioed her successful arrival to Commander Jackson using encrypted communications that could not be intercepted by enemy forces. Overwatch in position. Clear visual on target building. Multiple enemy personnel visible. Standing by for further instructions. Jackson acknowledged her transmission and provided an updated timeline for the assault. Assault team beginning final approach. Execute on my command in approximately 2 hours. For the next hour and 45 minutes, Sarah observed the target compound through her scope, gathering intelligence about enemy defensive positions and movement patterns. She identified sniper positions, guard posts, and potential threats that could endanger the assault team. But 15 minutes before the scheduled assault time, Sarah observed something that changed everything. Through her scope, she saw the target individual himself appear at a window on the 4th floor of the building. Intelligence had indicated he was present at the location, but this was the first visual confirmation. Sarah immediately radioed the sighting to Jackson. I have eyes on the primary target. 4th floor, northwest window of the target building. Clear shot available. Jackson faced a critical decision. The original plan called for the assault team to clear the building systematically and capture or eliminate the target during the ground assault. But Sarah's position offered an opportunity to eliminate the target immediately with a precision shot. What is the range and shot difficulty? Jackson asked. Sarah calculated the distance and environmental factors quickly. Range is 1,050 meters. Slight crosswind from the east. Target is partially concealed by window frame, but I have a clear shot at center mass. High probability of success. The shot would be among the most difficult Sarah had ever attempted. The extreme range, urban environment, and moving target made success far from certain. But eliminating the target immediately would avoid the risks of a complex building assault in hostile territory. "You are authorized to engage," Jackson decided. "Take the shot when ready." Sarah adjusted her rifle position and settled into her shooting stance. She controlled her breathing and heart rate while calculating the precise adjustments needed for the extreme range shot. The wind conditions, temperature, and altitude all affected the bullet's trajectory at this distance. Through her scope, Sarah watched the target move around the room, waiting for the perfect moment when he would present a clear shot opportunity. She had learned from her grandfather that patience was the most important quality a sniper could possess. The opportunity came when the target stepped to the window and stood motionless for several seconds while speaking to someone else in the room. Sarah had a clear view of his center mass with no obstructions between her position and the target. Sarah exhaled slowly, steadied her rifle, and squeezed the trigger with the smooth, consistent pressure she had practiced thousands of times. The suppressed rifle made minimal noise, and the muzzle flash was concealed by the flash suppressor attached to her barrel. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds before reaching its target. Through her scope, Sarah watched the target collapse as the bullet struck him precisely where she had aimed. There was no movement after the impact, confirming that the shot had been immediately fatal. "Target eliminated," Sarah reported quietly over the radio. "Confirmed kill on primary objective." Jackson's relief was evident in his voice. "Outstanding shooting. Assault team is moving to secondary objectives and extraction." But Sarah's mission was far from over. The sound of her shot had been minimal, but enemy forces in the target building quickly discovered their leader's death. Within minutes, the area erupted in activity as hostile fighters began searching for the sniper who had eliminated their commander. Sarah observed through her scope as enemy forces poured out of buildings throughout the area, beginning a systematic search for her position. Vehicle-mounted patrols began moving through the streets while dismounted infantry searched buildings methodically. "Multiple enemy forces converging on my area," Sarah radioed. "Beginning movement to extraction point." The extraction point was located 2 miles from Sarah's current position, requiring her to move through the same hostile urban terrain while enemy forces actively searched for her. But now the enemy was alert and actively hunting, making concealment much more difficult. Sarah packed her equipment and began moving through the damaged building toward her planned escape route. She had studied multiple possible withdrawal paths during her mission planning, anticipating that she might need to leave the area under enemy pressure. The escape through the city was a deadly game of cat and mouse. Sarah moved between buildings, using underground passages and rooftops while enemy patrols searched the area she had just vacated. Several times, she came within meters of hostile forces without being detected. During one particularly close encounter, Sarah found herself trapped in a basement while enemy fighters searched the building above her. She could hear their voices and footsteps directly overhead as they moved through rooms looking for any sign of the sniper who had killed their leader. Sarah remained motionless for over an hour while the enemy search continued around her position. Her patience and discipline allowed her to remain undetected despite being surrounded by hostile forces actively searching for her. When the enemy fighters finally moved on to search other buildings, Sarah resumed her movement toward the extraction point. She navigated through bombed-out structures and drainage systems while avoiding the numerous patrols that continued to comb the area. After 6 hours of careful movement through hostile territory, Sarah reached the extraction point where Commander Jackson and his team were waiting. The assault team had successfully completed their secondary objectives and gathered valuable intelligence materials from other buildings in the compound. "Welcome back," Jackson greeted her with obvious relief. "That was exceptional shooting and exceptional escape and evasion. You accomplished something that most people would consider impossible." Sarah was exhausted from the stress and physical demands of the mission, but she felt deep satisfaction at having successfully completed such a challenging operation. The elimination of the terrorist leader would save countless lives by preventing the attacks he had been planning. The extraction helicopter arrived precisely on schedule, and the team departed Syrian airspace without being detected by enemy forces. During the flight back to base, Jackson made a decision that would change Sarah's career trajectory. "When we get back to headquarters, I am recommending you for the Distinguished Service Cross," Jackson told her. "What you accomplished today was beyond the call of duty. You eliminated a high-value target under impossible conditions and escaped through hostile territory while being actively hunted by superior enemy forces." Sarah was honored by the recognition, but she was more focused on the successful completion of the mission and the safe return of her team. The individual award meant less to her than the knowledge that her actions had contributed to protecting American lives. The Distinguished Service Cross recommendation was approved at the highest levels of military command. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy, Sergeant First Class Martinez displayed conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of her own life while serving as a sniper in support of Special Operations Forces during combat operations in Syria." The award ceremony was conducted at the Pentagon with senior military leaders and government officials in attendance. But perhaps more meaningful to Sarah was the presence of her grandfather, who had traveled from Texas to witness her receiving the nation's second highest military decoration. "I always knew you had something special," her grandfather told her after the ceremony. "But I never imagined it would lead you to this level of service to your country." Commander Jackson, now promoted to Brigadier General, spoke at the ceremony about Sarah's contributions to special operations missions over her career. "Sergeant First Class Martinez represents the very best of what our military can achieve," Jackson said. "Her technical skills, tactical judgment, and unwavering courage under fire have saved countless lives during some of our most challenging missions. She has established a standard of excellence that will inspire future generations of special operations personnel." After the ceremony, Sarah was approached by numerous senior officers who wanted to discuss future assignments and career opportunities. Her reputation within the military had grown to the point where she could choose almost any assignment she desired. But Sarah's thoughts were focused on returning to her team and preparing for the next mission. She knew that somewhere in the world, enemy forces were planning attacks against American interests. Her skills and experience would be needed to counter those threats and protect the lives of her fellow service members. The young woman who had walked into an Army recruiting station in a small Texas town had become one of the most decorated and respected warriors in the American military. Her journey from an unknown soldier to a legendary sniper had proven that excellence in combat was determined by character, skill, and dedication rather than gender or background. Sarah's legacy extended beyond her individual achievements. She had opened doors for other women who possessed the capabilities and determination to serve in special operations roles. Her success had demonstrated that the military's most elite units should be judged by their ability to accomplish missions rather than traditional assumptions about who could serve effectively in combat. As Sarah prepared for her next deployment with the SEAL team, she carried with her the lessons learned from her grandfather about patience, precision, and service to others. Those simple lessons, combined with exceptional training and unwavering determination, had created a warrior whose name would be remembered long after her service ended. The rankless and nameless female soldier had earned honor from the most elite warriors in the American military through her actions on the battlefield. Her story would inspire future generations of service members to pursue excellence regardless of the obstacles they might face along the way.